Thanks for joining us here on our Facebook Live. I'm Leanna Lois. I'm an assistant managing editor at Education Week, and I'm here with my colleague, Madeline Will, who's a staff writer, and she covers teachers. And today we're going to do a little bit of a debrief on the midterm election, which happened earlier this week, as you probably know. One story that we were following really closely was teachers who were running for office. So as you may have heard, there's been a lot of talk about a lot of teachers who are running for office, particularly for state legislatures this season. That's in part because there was so much teacher activism last spring. There were about 6 states that had widespread teacher walkouts and protests. Most of them were about teacher pay and school funding, and that happened last spring, and a lot of teachers decided to continue their activism going forward by running for office. So here at Education Week, we followed that story closely. We even built a database and collected names of teachers who were running for office. And Madeline's going to tell us a little bit more about the database and our criteria. So talk a little bit about that project and where it came from and how it worked.
Yeah, so we knew educators were running for all different kinds of offices this year. So we really wanted to focus and narrow down on current classroom teachers who are running for state legislature because we felt that these teachers have very compelling stories. They're the ones that are trying to get to the bodies that decide their pay and school funding. So we counted 177 current classroom teachers who are running for state legislature. And we, gather this information across the country, but we really focused on 4 states that saw teacher activism, which was Oklahoma, Arizona, West Virginia, and Kentucky. So we tracked those teachers throughout the election, kept adding to them. It's not a comprehensive look, but we think we did a pretty good job of capturing some of these stories.
And that number 177 is really different than some of the numbers we saw from other organizations and outlets. We saw some numbers as high as 1,800, saying 1,800 educators were running. Why were ours so different than others?
Yeah, so a lot of outlets, when they were considering educators, they were looking at former teachers, principals, even college professors, support staff. And so we were really just focused on classroom teachers. So it was a much smaller subset.
So let's talk about the results. How did teachers do?
So 42 teachers got elected to state legislature this week, which is pretty significant, but a lot more lost. So about 80 teachers lost on Tuesday. Another 60 didn't make it past the primary. So it was mixed results.
And that's looking just at state legislatures. There was another big high-profile win at the congressional level. Talk a little bit about Jahana Hayes.
Yeah, so Jahana Hayes was the 2016 National Teacher of the Year, and she was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives for Connecticut. She is the first Black woman to represent Connecticut in Congress. She was a former history teacher. It was a very cool story.
But as you also said, it looked like 80 out of about 120 who won the primaries, right?
Yeah.
Lost. Was this a good outcome or a negative outcome? Like, how are, as we look back on the outcome here, is this a positive result for teachers, a negative result? So what does it look like?
Yeah, I think teachers had hoped that they would make more strides. I think people in Arizona and Oklahoma, they really hoped that they could flip a lot of seats, turn the state legislature blue, that they could make a bigger inroads. But teachers were still pretty encouraged that so many did win. People are feeling, well, this is better than nothing, that we're making progress. One teacher told me change is going to be measured in incremental gains.
So you did some on-the-ground reporting on election night. You came back with some stories. Tell us a little bit about where you were. You were in Oklahoma and Tulsa, right? Yeah. Talk about what you were doing there and what the feeling was like on the ground in the state that had quite a few teachers running.
Yeah, so Oklahoma had 66 teachers running, which is the most out of any state that we saw. And teachers were really fired up. They were. I was at the Tulsa Democrats Party, the Democratic Party for the county, and people were really hoping that the Democratic candidate would take the governor's race, which did not happen. So it was kind of like a highs and lows. People were very emotional. But they were also excited because a couple teachers there did win. So there was some really passionate victory speeches, but also some kind of tough looks at what's ahead.
And then the next day, you followed a teacher who had run for office back to his classroom as a journalism teacher in Sand Springs, Oklahoma. Talk a little bit about that experience. This teacher did not win.
No, he did not win. He was running for a state house. I was in his high school journalism class when he told his students. And it was a heartbreaking loss for him. He, tried really hard. He was on the ground every day, and it just didn't happen. So it was kind of tough for him to go to tell his high school students that. And, they were interested in it. They were asking all these questions. And he told them, this was really hard, but I would do it again. You guys are worth it.
I just love that anecdote because it really speaks to how personal this is for so many teachers, the fact that they had to kind of go through that experience and the next day walk in and face their kids. And so many teachers who did run said, I did it for my kids.
Exactly,
right?
Yeah.
So what do we think is going to happen from here? Are teachers going to continue with their political activism? Do you think we'll see it fizzle out, or are they more energized than ever? What do we think is going to happen?
Yes, I think that most teachers are not going to go away. I talked to several people who ran and lost who said, we're going to try again in 2020. We're going to keep running and seeing if we can get more educator seats in the state legislatures next time. So I think people are determined to keep going.
So we will continue to follow this story and see what happens from here, both with the activism and then down the road in a couple years if more teachers run for office. But if you'd like to see more coverage of the election and results, and if you'd like to see our tracker, head over to edweek.org. And we're also holding an election event on November 28th. You can find more information about that on edweek.org as well. And thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.